Hey everyone, we're Gabby,
Karim,
and Jules,
and you're listening to the Making of an Incredible MD podcast by Allied to Health.
Last season we took you behind the scenes of some of our mock MMI stations.
So we've talked about the GAMSAT and we've talked about the interviews. So now on to the next step. This season we're talking all things getting ready for med school.
We will be running you through what a day in the life of a medical student looks like, what study techniques to know about, what your career is going to look like, and much more.
So stay tuned and get ready to get med ready. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Making of an Incredible MD. Today we are very lucky to be joined by Kayla and Evan, who are from a podcast called Podstetrics. So Podstetrics is essentially just a podcast about everything obstetrics. We're very excited to have you guys on.
Hi.
Hello, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you for having us too.
Thank you for being here. We're honestly very excited to hear all about your podcast. But before we get started, just a quick acknowledgement to country. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today. So for me personally, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So a little bit of background information about Kayla. So you're doing an honours at the Ritchie Centre in Melbourne?
Yeah, so I'm about to start my honours here at the Ritchie Centre. Pretty exciting. Yeah.
Beautiful. And Evan, he is in his final year of medicine at Monash University. How's that going, Evan?
Yeah, pretty good at the moment. Nearly done, approaching the finish line. So I'll be glad to finish.
Nearly there, almost doctor.
So close yet so far.
All right, beautiful. So Evan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So as you've kind of alluded to before, I'm in my final year of medicine at Monash. So I'm a postgraduate student and very interested in all things obstetrics and women's health. So I suppose with myself, I have a very non-traditional entry into med, kind of a very weird pathway, an alternative pathway, something that I actually pride myself on. And I feel like it gives me, a different perspective to medicine now that I'm in it. And I'm sure we'll go through that a bit. But apart from that, I have a pet pug called Cujo, and he takes up most of my time as well. And then, also working part-time on weekends. So kind of got that going. And then lastly, some research. So I also do some research in obstetrics and women's health. And that kind of really fills up most of my days.
Just for everyone listening, I can see a photo of Evan's pug, and it is absolutely adorable.
Definitely will give that to you so you can post that in your show notes.
Yeah.
Maybe that can be the picture that we decide to use for this episode. All right. And Kayla, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm nowhere near as interesting as Evan. We've known each other now for 7 years, but he met me when I first came out of high school. I was baby Caleb. He's a little bit older, but I started off in biomed, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Definitely went through some ups and downs through university. My passion for obstetrics and women's health really came during my time as a student midwife. So I spent 2 years in midwifery, and then I went to science so I could pursue some research in women's health. And don't really have a career trajectory at the moment. I'm just taking everything as it comes and we'll see what happens. But starting my honours year this year, so really excited.
It'll be really good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, it sounds incredible. Okay, well, so it sounds like you guys sort of have known each other for a very long time, so 7 years.
Too long.
Quite a bit. So can you tell us a bit about how you met, how this friendship formed? Just tell us a bit about your background.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I suppose, we did meet 7 years ago at uni. So Kayla was kind of brand new to uni, I guess. And I had done uni for 3 years. So I was 21, I think, at the time. And I remember we kind of just went to the orientation, and we actually didn't gel at the start, did we?
Because he rocked up to orientate. He had just come from work and he was working at David Jones at the time. So he was there in a suit and tie. I was like, who the hell is this guy?
And so when we first kind of met each other, we weren't really friends at all. We kind of just stared each other off for a bit.
Yeah.
And then it was really like, I guess, a month into the degree that we started talking a lot.
Yeah.
And we just like gelled straight away. We used to have like 2-hour phone calls like every night.
I know, it's really bad.
Yeah.
We've cut it down now. We're like at like 40 minutes now every night.
That's so strange. I wonder why you guys didn't get along at first.
I don't know. Isn't that like, that's like always the way with best mates, I feel.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was very different when I came out of high school though. Like I was shy.
You just needed
I went to an all-girls school, never spoken to a guy before.
I think you just needed a month to kind of like calm down and get ready for uni. And
Yeah. And it helped because we had such a small cohort as well.
We did.
So
we had like 30 people in our cohort at the time. So
we were forced to talk to each other.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, so what course did you guys start? So you met on orientation day for what course?
So we I guess did at the time, we were at RMIT and we did biomedicine and biotechnology, the double there.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very small cohort.
Yeah, for the double degree, it was a really small cohort.
Yeah.
And we spent a year there and then we went to biomed at Monash.
Yeah. So, but before we went to biomed at Monash, so that year at RMIT, we kind of had no idea what we were doing.
None.
It was honestly like to this day, the best year of my life.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. I don't think I've ever had that much
Fun.
fun.
No.
And yeah.
You have to flesh that out a bit more. What was so fun about that year?
Oh.
Well, so we had kind of like a really close mate in our friendship group that lived in the city.
Yeah.
And she had like this nice apartment in the city. And we would, go to uni and we'd be there for like maybe, 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. And then we'd just go off there and we'd go like all around Melbourne pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, wherever public transport went. Yeah.
Yeah. Museum.
And it was just nice though. Like, those like friendship groups that you see on like posters with like the 7 diverse friends sitting in a group, holding textbooks and sitting on the lawn, like having a good time. Like that was us.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. That's amazing. Okay, cool. Right. So then you got into Monash Biomed. And so was that a decision you guys made together or what happened there?
Yeah, it was pretty much together. It was both of us had, at the time I did as well, but both of us had ambitions to go into the medical field. And so we thought that Monash Biomed would be our best shot, especially because we didn't necessarily have to sit the GAMSAT for entry. So
I think that was kind of like a big driver for us. And also like we kind of wanted to kind of move somewhere different, like have a fresh start.
And at the same time, stay together.
Yeah. And so actually I still remember the day when offers came out. So Kayla got her offer on VTAC about 6 or 7 hours before me.
Ooh.
So I was driving to work when I got my offer, but I remember Kayla rang me in the morning and she was like, I got in. And I was like to her, well, I didn't because I haven't heard back yet.
Yeah.
And I was trying to convince her to accept the offer.
No, I was like, I don't want to do this without you. I can't do it.
And then 6 hours later, I got the offer as well. So we were like, yep.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Time to party. All right, cool. So you got into your course at Monash, and what was that like? Just describe that for us. How did you guys both go?
It was hard.
Yeah.
I look, honestly, I did not cope that well. I was 19 at the time. And I did not cope very well. I didn't last very long. I left after a year and a half, but yeah, I definitely couldn't hack the pressure. I wasn't that into my studying at the time. I was going through a lot, trying to balance mental health and studying. And obviously any way to like not have to deal with what was going on was going to take precedence. I was one of those people that would sweep everything under the rug and not accept what was going on. I would go out a lot. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Spend a lot of time with people that weren't interested in studying, and studying fell to the bottom of my my to-do list, I guess. Yeah,
absolutely. I think because I actually did Monash at Biomed as well. And just to give our listeners, and just to give our listeners some context for what that course is like, because I think a lot of our listeners are likely from Monash, and a lot of our listeners might be from Melbourne. Monash Biomed is an incredibly, incredibly competitive course, and the students in that course tend to study very, very hard, and it can get a little bit overwhelming. It was almost like a bit of a toxic study culture in that, like, you know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was very cutthroat.
yes.
And I know me personally, I couldn't deal with the pressure, and
No, and you know what, like, honestly, like, it nearly got too much for me as well.
you struggled a lot as
I
well.
I was working, 38 hours a week at the time to survive. And I mean, Kayla, you were like pretty much my counselor.
Yeah, we were each other's counselors.
Because it was a rough time. And it's quite interesting though, because the majority of people that do biomed at Monash, I don't know what Melbourne is like, but 90 to 95% want to do medicine. But yet, like, that toxic environment, it doesn't really bring out what you would expect in a good doctor.
Yeah.
It's really odd.
Absolutely, of course, yeah. Totally agree with that. And I think that's where a lot of students who sit Monash Med interviews who come from biomed actually get let down to some extent, because some of the culture that is developed in biomed leads to characteristics that are not great in a doctor, I want to say.
No, absolutely. And I don't know if we're going to cover that later in the podcast. So we obviously listen to your podcast as well.
Yeah.
And there are definitely things that people can do early on to really strengthen their, interview application. So we can talk about that later if you like. But definitely I agree with you on that one.
But yeah, it was definitely not the place for me at the time. Evan pushed through it. I couldn't hack it. I had to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. And so what was your next step after biomed, Evan, and for you, Kayla, what was your next step after deciding biomed was not right for you?
Do you want to go?
So I suppose, so with me, I mean, I ended up finishing biomed. And in my last year of biomed, I actually did a lot of research. So I did a program called Europe, which is the undergraduate research opportunities program. So it's like a year-long research project pretty much in a lab. And so I was doing that, and I was really considering like whether I wanted to go into research or whether I wanted to go into medicine. And I had a really good mentor in my lab at the time that kind of told me, if you're interested in research, it's honestly better if you go and get your MD and then come back to research, because in terms of grants, the actual NHMRC process to get a grant when you have an MD is different to when you don't. So it's a little bit easier to get funding, and it's a little bit easier to do clinical trials as well. So that's kind of like what spurred me on to apply for Monash Med. But even Monash Med was quite funny for me. So we were supposed to apply in our second year, and we were supposed to actually get emails telling us to apply, and we never got the email. So I actually forgot to apply for Med in my second year. So when I applied for Med in third year, I think it was for 20 spots. There was like...
Yeah, it was because second year application, wasn't that for like 70 or something?
Yeah,
like
70
that?
or 80, and then third year was 20. And I missed the boat in second year. So I actually thought I wasn't going to get in third year, but I was lucky enough to get in, I suppose.
Yeah. That must have been a very intense period trying to go for 20 spots. What was that like?
Look, it was an intense period, and it was also, I think that year my mental health really took a toll, because I had a lot of, I think I've definitely told Kayla this, many times, but I had a lot of friends, like close friends, that actually applied, but hid the fact that the applications were open. And so I suppose
again, cutthroat nature.
Once again, that cutthroat nature. And I suppose like that was very, I guess, hurtful at the time. And I felt like, I'd been betrayed pretty much by my friends.
Well, you didn't feel that way. You were betrayed.
Yeah, I was. I was. And I suppose, so that was definitely a very hard year. And actually, like, I remember telling Kayla, I was like, if these are the types of people that are going to get into medicine at Monash, like, I don't know if I want to be there. And then, funnily enough, they got weirded out in the interview process. So
lucky,
yeah, exactly. That is, terrible to hear, but it can be that competitive to a point where you're not willing to help out your friends.
And I suppose, like, just so we can say this, we're not at all saying that this is a fault of Monash. Like, Monash University has been amazing. We're saying that this is the culture that is propagated by students. Yeah, Monash tried everything they could to make everything better. In terms of, opportunities and mental health and things like that. But it was just, unfortunately, that was the culture.
And just to give some context, like, I mean, having done Monash Biomed and being now at Melbourne Uni, in medicine, and having talked to some of my friends who did, let's say, biomed at Melbourne Uni, yeah, Monash set you up really well with an excellent degree. Like I feel like I learned more about research and biomed at Monash compared to a lot of my friends who might have specialised in a specific area but not really learnt about the entirety of biomed.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, it's an excellent course. What about you, Kayla? So what was your next step after deciding that biomed was not right for you?
Well, I kind of made a split second decision and was like, I need to get out of here. So that was after semester 1 of my second year. And then for about 6 months, I worked 2 jobs. So 7 days, I would do Monday to Thursday one, and then Thursday nights to Sunday at another one.
Yep.
And I guess that 6 months, complete honesty, Evan and I stopped speaking to each other for a little bit. And that in itself is an indication of how bad, like, in the kind of place that I was in at the time.
Yeah.
And then slowly we started talking again, and I met my partner, who I've been with now for 4 years, and she helped me a lot. But the one bright or shining light, I guess, for me during biomed was developmental biology. Like, that was the one thing that I actually enjoyed, and that was just do you remember when we had to pick electives and we were like, it's either dev or immunology? And I was like, gee, there is no way in hell I'm doing immunology. Let's jump to dev. I had no idea what to expect.
But antibodies, though.
No antibodies. So we did dev, and then I was thinking, well, I've been talking all this game about wanting to be in medicine, but I've never experienced the healthcare field. So let me find a way to mesh those two things together. And I did, so I applied for midwifery nursing. So I did midwifery nursing for 2 years. And I think during those 2 years, other than the first year of biomed for fun, those 2 years were probably the highest points in terms of like my learning journey. Learning became more of a passion rather than an obligation for me during that time. Started to, I guess, come up with coping mechanisms to deal with my anxiety. And then after the 2 years, even though I loved it, I really wanted to go back to Monash to do science, so that, one, I could experience research, and two, also is kind of like a redemption, I guess, because I did leave in the middle of biomed, and I felt like after those 2 years that I could go back and finish it. And the reason why I went to science was because of that more welcoming, I guess, environment, being able to decide what kind of choosing subjects that would suit me and were tailored to things that I was passionate about and wanting to learn. And yeah, so then I did science and I graduated finally after.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's such a good point, because I remember when I was doing biomed, I decided, a little bit left of field, but I decided to do a math elective.
Oh.
To sort of get away from all the biomed, because I love math. And I mean, I think that's a little bit different about me. Like, you know, most people that go into medicine hate math with a passion.
Oh God, Kayla loves math.
I love math.
So I found that doing something that I was really passionate about, even though it didn't end up being my career trajectory, it still allowed me to be okay with, you know, some of the overwhelming and large amount of content that we were getting in our biomed. But yeah, doing something you're passionate about really gives you that drive to keep going. I think that's such a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, 100%. We a bit of a funny story. When we were in RMIT, we had to do a stats unit. I kid you not, the day of the exam, I was sitting there in front of the library tutoring him. And what score did you get?
I can't remember. It was something ridiculous though.
It was like a 95.
But literally, like, because I'm so bad at math. Like, I'm not going to lie. I am ridiculously bad at math. And I just remember, it was like literally the day before the exam. No, the day of the exam.
We got there at like 7 a.m.
Yeah, and I was like, Kayla, like, could you please just run through the entire semester with me?
Yeah.
That is serious cramming.
Yeah. So that's like a little tidbit onto how crazy our RMIT days were.
All right. Okay. And so, Evan, you got into medicine, but what made you want to pursue a career in medicine?
So I guess I'll talk a little bit about kind of my journey into medicine before RMIT, because I think it's kind of valuable for the listeners to know that things like this can happen and you can still kind of do what you want, as cliched as it sounds. So I guess after high school finished, I went into a science degree and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I ended up, running through the degree, not really studying at all. But instead of dropping out, I kept on pushing through and I kept on failing units. And it, happened for 2 years. And then at the end of the 2 years, I actually had to go in front of an academic board and I was asked to leave uni. So I got excluded from uni. And at the time, I had zero idea what I was doing because after the first year, after I had failed and had to stay back, I kind of lost my friendship group. So I was running through uni by myself and uni's a big place, a lot of students. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I remember going to this like academic progress committee and one of the teachers was told me, she pretty much said, you're coming into this meeting and you just look like you have kind of no idea what you're doing. And at the time it sounded very harsh, but she was pretty much saying that there was kind of like no passion, no drive in me. And at the time that was true. And she told me, she was like, you can still do what you want to do, but take some time off and really think hard about what you want to do, make a plan and stick to the plan, make goals and stick to the goals. So I actually went away and I was working for a while. But during this time, it was actually like a really bad time for me, I guess. I had bad friends. I was surrounded, in a bad environment. And it kind of culminated into me being, homeless for 3 weeks. So I lived on the streets for 3 weeks.
Wow.
At this time that I kind of had no idea, what life was going to throw at me. And then I ended up having a really supportive family, but at the time I just didn't see that. And they kind of helped me through that. And then it was only at the end of that year that I decided to go to RMIT. And even during RMIT, I had no idea that I wanted medicine. So that still wasn't on my radar. And then got into RMIT, was doing RMIT, ended up needing to go to hospital. And it was kind of there that I saw the healthcare team, how they worked, what they did. And that really started the passion of, I want to do healthcare. So at the time, it didn't matter for me if it was nursing, physiotherapy, midwifery, or medicine. I just wanted to do healthcare. I suppose I've just been lucky, though, in RMIT and in biomedicine to be able to get the opportunity to do medicine. But it wasn't really something that was, ever like a number one goal at the time. It was kind of something that fit into place with me.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's an incredible story.
It's a very long-winded story, but pretty much, anyone can do what they want, as cliched as it sounds.
Well, it really does show that, doesn't it? Being in the position that you were in, it shows how you've overcome the challenges. And I think, to our listeners, if there was one thing I'd love to point out about that story, it's that one incredible quality in a lot of doctors is that their ability to overcome challenges. And I think Evan demonstrates that without a doubt. Yeah, it's an absolutely incredible story. And same with you as well, Kayla. It's really incredible stories of how you guys got to where you are in your career. Which sort of brings us to the fun part of this episode. So what made you guys want to start a podcast about obstetrics of all things?
Look, I think the main thing really is, so I guess this answer is kind of twofold. The first thing is that there's really nothing out there in terms of obstetrics podcasts in Australia.
Yeah.
But I guess the second thing was we really wanted to make a podcast that really allowed people, like almost invited people into our living room. We wanted people to kind of feel our vibes, enjoy the way that we gel, and be able to learn things in like a safe environment.
Yeah, because like a lot of the stuff that we're planning to do, not necessarily have done, but a lot of the things that we're planning to do in the future are things that we talk about on the regular on the phone. So I guess it's like all face-to-face, obviously, but I think that's a kind of vibe that we wanted to give off as well. We were like, well, we're doing this over the phone. Let's just put it out there and see what happens.
Let's record it and see if people like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you guys are planning to have a lot of researchers, people who are, the best in their fields come on. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea. So I suppose one of the episodes that we've done already is with an astounding man, Dr. James Kemper, who's a resident obstetrician at the moment and is very heavily involved in research. So he's kind of the first guest that we've had, and he kind of breaks down kind of the journey to becoming an obstetrician, what his kind of work week looks like and how he manages to balance everything, which is, we still don't know how. But and it's really it's great to get these people on.
Oh yeah, it's amazing because like I know for me, because I don't work in the medical field, I miss out on that.
Yeah.
But I get that through Evan, and I'm meeting amazing people too. So it's amazing to learn from, like, obviously because I've been in the I've seen the midwifery side of things, but I've never seen it from the perspective of an obstetrician. So it's nice to have that bit of back and forth as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess just one more thing as well. We've actually got a series coming out with H2H that we're like extremely excited about. The mission that you all do.
Yeah.
We fully stand behind. We love it.
Yeah.
And we even had a chat with Eliza, like obviously a co-founder, and one of the things where we were saying we didn't want, as a brand and as a podcast, to go on to other shows and to even be retweeting and reposting other shows that didn't fit in with the things that we believed in.
Mm.
And we definitely really believe in the business model that H2H has. So amazing.
Yeah, well, we're very, very proud of it. But just to give to the audience a bit of context, what we've done in the Philippines are missions to do health education. That's really what we stand for in terms of summarizing Health to Health, where all we do is we go to the Philippines, especially rural Philippines, and we do missions about health education. And one of the most recent missions, what we did is we gave some talks, some lectures, a bit of education about the teenage pregnancy. And the reason we decided to do a talk on that is because it's actually a really big problem in rural Philippines. A lot of teenage girls are becoming pregnant at an age where, unfortunately, their bodies really do struggle with it. Unfortunately, the teenage body of a girl is not that well designed for pregnancy. And so we kind of did a bit of health education about safe sex practices, using contraception, that sort of thing. So that's just a little bit of background information. Obviously, if you'd like to find out a bit more about our missions and what we've actually achieved, please visit our website, helladtohealth.org. We've got lots of information about that if you're interested. And even if you want to do a mission, obviously right now travel restrictions are in place, so we're not sure when we'll be able to do more health education missions, but hopefully when they do happen again, we'll be able to do more of those. But yeah, moving on a little bit in terms of the podcast. So you mentioned you're bringing on these researchers and all of these incredible doctors. What are you really hoping your audience will get out of your podcast?
We just really want people, I guess, to learn with us, because we are still learning, not in terms of like podcast recording, but more so about the field in itself, and we are passionate about learning about the field in itself. So we just want to, I guess, create a platform where that's easily accessible so learning, empowerment, I guess, as well. And
that's really it. We really want people to be able to improve their health literacy, learn along the way, and really get exposed to new things, because you would think that something like pregnancy care or contraception or women's health is something that's known by most women,
but it's really not.
No, and that's the thing. We really just want to allow people to come on that learning journey with us, and hopefully pick up a thing or two as they listen.
That was actually going to be one of my questions, which is, do you think women today in this modern world in Australia, do you think that they have access to good, understandable, good quality health education regarding pregnancy, regarding contraception, regarding use of, things like hormone pills? What do you guys think?
It's a really hard question. For me personally, I went to an all-girls school, but I went to an all-girls Catholic school, and I know that for me, especially as a gay woman, I did not have safe sex education for catering to someone such as myself. In terms of contraception, yes, we had some sort of some very basic on the surface demonstrations, but what I'm fortunate with is that I was able to study midwifery. And so a lot of my education came during that time, especially in terms of contraception. A lot of those options were not necessarily things that I had ever heard about. And I guess I come from a little bit more of a conservative household, I guess, as well. So when it comes to things like, again, contraception and things like, I can't put it, I don't know how to put it, but things like the pill were never an option for me because it was assumed that I wasn't sexually active, but at the same time, no one knew about my sexuality, but I had problems with my menstrual cycle. So I could never go to the doctor and be like, I need this or this is going on, because it was just, well, I didn't even know about it in the first place.
I guess you didn't even realize that that was an option.
No,
and that's
no,
the thing.
not at all.
So one of the things that we've definitely found is, especially living in a country like Australia, where we have uncensored internet, is that the information is vast. You can find whatever you want, right?
You can,
but
yes.
the information is also paralyzing because there's so much of it. And it's not only that, time becomes a factor.
Yeah.
When do you have the time to sit down and look these things up? If you do look it up and you don't understand it, where do you go to from there?
And
if you don't have the science training, for example.
You can't, for me, I couldn't necessarily go to my family. I couldn't go see a doctor, especially at that age. That age, I could not make my own way to the doctor to be like, what's going on or what does this mean? And yeah, it was, at the time, it was very, very overwhelming. Different now, but I'm lucky to have access to an education that's catered towards that and a passion towards that. So it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we can often forget how privileged of a position we're in to have done a STEM, degree where you've had an opportunity to learn about the science. And, that information becomes somewhat accessible. But for a lot of the large majority of the public, a lot of that information is hard to find or confusing, or just difficult to understand, or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think doing a podcast like you guys are doing just allows people to find all that information in the one place and learn with you guys in your journey, and so they can also learn along their journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in terms of obstetrics and in terms of the learning, what do you guys think are some exciting new areas of research in obstetrics?
Exciting new areas. I suppose for me, so I'm really interested in maternal fetal medicine, which is a subspecialty after obstetrics training. And this really focuses on the physiological relationship that exists between mum and baby in utero. So when things go wrong in utero. And there's definitely a lot in terms of research that's coming out right now in terms of preeclampsia, in terms of some of your genetic conditions that can arise in utero, and the infective conditions like a pregnancy that's complicated with HIV, or a pregnancy that's complicated with, say, syphilis, for example. So they're definitely big research areas that are coming up at the moment. For me, currently, though, my big interest lies in an area called meta-research. So that's really the research that I'm doing at the moment. And really what meta-research is, it's research on research practices. So it's looking to see whether the information that's coming out of the obstetrics field is, first of all, relevant. And if it is relevant, are the papers that are coming out reporting what they purport to report? Really, that was quite a tongue twister. Quite a tongue. But really just looking at, I suppose it's just a quality analysis, really, but really making sure that everything that's coming out is the best kind of quality that we can have. The big problem at the moment with obstetrics is, especially when it comes to, pharmacotherapies, it's a very restricted field. There's not a lot of studies, and rightly so, to do with pregnant women. It's not really a population that you can do a trial on and say one half of my cohort will get the drug and one half won't.
Yeah.
Because not only are you looking after one person in a trial, you're now looking after two.
Yeah.
And so that's why the evidence that does come out needs to be the best quality evidence, because it's so sparse.
Absolutely, because research normally, I believe, will avoid pregnant women. They'll usually like to trial drugs, etc., in well, usually healthy people first if it's original stages, but pregnant women are not normally involved in research trials. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And currently at the moment, even with COVID, that's a big kind of issue right now. Do you vaccinate pregnant women or not? And the literature is quite, again, quite sparse again, or hesitant as well to include pregnant women. So it's really a category that we can't really answer that question really well.
Yeah, so that's actually a very interesting point. Okay, so a lot of exciting research happening at the moment. Just in terms of, what do you think are some basic things that junior doctors, med students should think about when seeing the pregnant patient?
That's on you, Evan.
Well, I was going to say, I'll actually let Kayla start this and give the listeners an idea of the perspective of a midwifery student.
So, I know when I first started interacting with patients, it was very daunting. The one piece of advice I can give is to be yourself. I'm talking very general, obviously, because obviously there are specific circumstances which this isn't the case, but normally it is a really positive experience. And the parents that come in are just so excited, and especially if it's their first, even if it's their second, sometimes they bring their babies along too, and it's nice to play with them as well. But it is, the more yourself that you are, I guess, the more you're going to be able to vibe with the patient, and it's all about connection with the field. I think anyway, because connection builds trust, and trust between a patient and a healthcare giver is super, super important.
Yeah. So you can never underestimate the value of rapport with a patient.
Yeah.
Especially sorry, Kayla, you going to say something else?
I was going to say, especially when you're dealing with a family, mum, dad, and bubs, or mum, and bubs, or dad, and bubs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, communication, rapport, getting your patients to trust you, making sure patients can trust you because you're competent, but also because you're a lovely person. Really, really important. Okay, well, what about you, Evan? What do you think are some things that med students or junior doctors should watch out for?
I just want to add in quickly as well, keep an open mind, please, because it is an amazing field. And Evan was very, very much so, because I would sit here after my placements and I'd be like, oh, I did this and I saw this. And he was like, I don't like the sound of anything like that. I'm dreading my placements. And then he went in there, and I kid you not, after his first day, he called me. He was like, I think I want to do this.
So keeping an open mind.
Keep an open mind.
Yeah. I suppose like some more kind of like medically tailored advice, building on what Kayla said with the rapport, signposting everything that you're doing is very important. So, when you're doing abdominal palpation, let them know what they're going to be, what you're going to be doing. When you're, taking the symphysiofundal height, palpating the pubic bone is very uncomfortable for the patient, especially if they need to go to the bathroom, and pregnant women often do. Yeah. So let them know, what they can be feeling. And really, for me, the main thing is signposting. As medical students and junior doctors, we're all real type A personalities. So you're going to memorize everything before you go in anyway. Don't worry about, in terms of like, or whether the thing or the steps that you're going to do. It's more about being present in the room and really taking the time to share the joy with the patient, because that's why you're there, really. And first to connect. Understand
that is, I think we mentioned this in our pilot episode as well. How many times in your medical career will you take care of two people at once? So you're looking after mum and you're looking after bubs, and it's very rare that happens. So, yeah.
But I guess the main thing as well is just remember, even though, you're examining mum for how baby is, don't forget that
about
mum's
mum
in the room
as well. Yeah.
Because it can be very easy, to be focusing on, how you're palpating or how you're measuring, and just completely ignore the person that's lying on the table.
Yeah. Yes.
Oddly enough, you ignore them right in front of you. Absolutely. And I think if anyone out there listening has read the book or wants to go read a book somewhat about obstetrics, there's a really good book out there called This Is Going to Hurt. I forget the name of the author.
That would be Adam K.
Yes, Adam Kay. It's an excellent book, really entertaining. And I think
Amazing.
there's one quote in it that that really stands out to me, which is that in medicine you're often dealing with people who might be a little bit sad, not the best day in their life, they're in the emergency room or whatever it might be, or they're here for a surgery. Often in obstetrics, you're dealing with people that are very happy. So it can often be quite a beautiful thing to witness. But yeah, that's a really good book to read for people listening.
That's why I used to say that to Evan as well before he started his obstetrics rotation. I was like, I feel like medicine is filled with so many sad moments and like rarely a happy moment, but with obstetrics it's just flipped on its head. It's so many happy moments and then some sad. And that's what drew me to the field straight away. Yeah.
And there's just something about birth that no one can explain until you're there.
I cried when I still remember my first birth, but the first birth that I ever saw, I cried. And then my the woman that had just given birth laughed at me after.
But it's just, I don't know, there's something about it. Like, I mean, the human species is so old, as a species. And we live in a world full of technology, and technology amazes us with what it can do. But still seeing a birth, nothing can top that.
Nothing. It's still the one the best day of my whole learning educational career has been that day when I saw my first birth. And not even when I actually did my first birth, it was just seeing it. That'll stick in my mind forever.
And I remember the day when I saw my first birth. I don't even remember the walk back to my car.
Yeah.
And yeah, amazing.
You guys are making me very excited. I haven't actually witnessed the birth yet.
I'm so excited for you.
You have no idea.
It's just, there's never been an opportunity. But I'm hopeful for third year when we will finally get a chance to learn a little bit about obstetrics. And I'm very, very excited. I've definitely got a very open mind about obstetrics. I'm keen to do some learning.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. It'll seriously be amazing. It'll be the one, I don't know about, you're different because you want to be an obstetrician, but if there's one thing in medicine that you remember, please remember that day because it's so special.
Yeah, no, I think I definitely will. Okay, well, just to round things off, I suppose, with that episode, if there's one final bit of advice that you guys would like to give to people who might be aspiring to work in obstetrics, what would that be?
Not even just aspiring to work in obstetrics, but just the one thing I live by is make time to feel, because we always get caught up in the I guess the little things in life, but we forget to take care of ourselves and give yourself that time.
I guess my big thing as well is, I guess, for anyone who's interested in a career in healthcare, and this sounds really cheesy, but always
is there anything else with you though?
I'm a block of cheese, really.
You are a block of cheese.
Walk into work and just try and make one person smile. That's kind of like the thing that I live by, no matter who they are as well, part of the team, because not only do you feel good, but people remember you. And my big thing is, especially from kind of like all the things that I went through and all the things that I've learned, is you never know someone's day.
Yeah.
Like the one nice thing that you say could be the one thing that, keeps them going.
Yeah.
Literally on the first day of medicine, they showed us this video, which you probably might have seen. It's quite popular, about being in someone else's shoes. I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically goes into like, you never know what people are feeling, so always try to be kind to others and make them smile. I think that's such a big, important lesson for all of us.
Yeah, totally agree.
Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having us on. I suppose in terms of Podstetrics, so you can find us at Podstetrics.
Yeah.
Which
for
is
Instagram, Twitter, or Linktree.
or we'll provide you with a link tree, and then you can put that out there, and that just puts everything together in one spot.
Place.
And we really hope that people enjoy what we put out there, because this is like completely out of passion and love. We don't get paid for this. It's completely free.
Yeah.
So we really do hope that people enjoy it just as much as we enjoy making it.
Yeah.
And if people want to listen to your podcast, what are the different avenues they can go to?
So we have Spotify, we have Apple,
And
Apple
then
Podcasts.
we have Castbox as well.
Castbox as well. Yeah, I always forget that one.
All right, beautiful. Well, all our listeners, please, as soon as you finish listening to this episode, jump onto Spotify, jump onto wherever you listen to your podcast from, and have a listen to Podstetrics. I want to thank Kayla and Evan so much for being on the podcast with us. We've learned so much. I've personally learned heaps. There's definitely some lessons there that I'm going to take away and hold on to in my future career. But yeah, we want to thank you for being on the show. And thanks for listening to Making of Incredible MD. We hope that you guys will continue listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Making of an Incredible MD podcast by Allied to Health. Please like, share, and subscribe to help spread the word about our podcast. And we'd love to hear your feedback. So send us an email or message on Facebook. All of our links are in the show notes. Thanks. We'll see you next time.